Welcome everyone to our Radio Nukalofa 88.6 FM. Those who will be watching this on any of our social media platform, we're going to be listening to this on 88.6 Radio Nukalofa, our LALINOA today. Also, we have our podcast that will be out as well. But we've got a special guest right now. We've got the Speaker of the House, Lord Fakafanua. Thank you for always saying yes when I ask for interview. Today's interview to everyone out there will be about the events that did and also did not happen on the 9th of December 2024 with the vote of no confidence. And we're going to begin it right now. Lord Fakafanua, let's start with the beginning of the day with the vote of no confidence that was meant to happen on the 9th of December 2024. Deputy Prime Minister Honorable Vaipulu pointed out that the letter of the motion of no confidence initially had the complete set of 10 members of parliamentarian signatures. However, he noticed that 2 additional signatures were added on on the 10th of October. One of the issues mentioned in the motion of no confidence was Chokum, which didn't occur until October 21st. Honorable Vaipulu claimed that the signatures for the motion of no confidence were collected before some of its content were finalized, such as the Chokum meeting in Samoa. He believes that this motion should not be presented in Parliament today, which was the 9th of December, because the signatures were obtained prematurely before the motions were fully completed. The decision lied with you, the Speaker. You decided, after a very long debate on the points raised by the Deputy Prime Minister, and you refer to the Constitution when making your decisions on this matter. For the first issue, regarding the extra signatures added afterwards, you cited Clause 50B of our Constitution. To address the second issue concerning the added content to the motion after the members had signed it, you quoted the rules 84B to explain. Please explain these clauses and how it led to the decision you made on that day.
Thank you, Lala. I think everyone's now aware of the difference between Clause 50A of the Constitution and 50B. So 50A is all about the Prime Minister, about the appointment of the Prime Minister and how long his appointment lasts. So 50A states that the Prime Minister is appointed according to the Constitution and his appointment can be revoked by 50B. It also states that his appointment ends when he dies or he resigns or if his seat in the House is revoked. So the issue here was that we focused on 50B because 50B is the right of members of Parliament to put forward a motion for a vote of no confidence. Now, 50B is about the Prime Minister, but both 50A and 50B exist simultaneously. So when Dr. Aisake Eke submitted his motion for a vote of no confidence, it was in accordance with our rules, which states that he has to give the Speaker notice of 5 days, and we have to table it in the House within 14 days. So both the notice of 5 days and the adding of the motion onto the agenda within 14 days, those were all complied with. And when a motion comes in, it comes in according to Rule 84 of our standing orders. And Rule 84 basically determines the process and what needs to happen. So when you bring in a motion with your supporting evidence, you have to comply with our rules, which states that you have to have 10 signatures, and I then give it to the clerk's office to vet. They vetted it, and when they vet it, they send it back for corrections. And that happened. There were parts of the motion that needed to comply with the rest of our rules, and the petitioners, the people who signed the signature, they all agreed to the changes that were made. So as long as it complies with our rules, it's fine to proceed with. And as far as I was concerned, the Constitution only limits the submission to certain times. So after a general election, there's a cool-down period before you can submit a vote of no confidence. And then before the next general election, there's also a period of 6 months before that you can't submit a vote of no confidence. So when the window's open, the only thing limiting you then is if a vote of no confidence was already submitted, there was one last year, then you can't put another one in for another 12 months. So within those periods, there's nothing to really prevent you from submitting it. And when we looked at the timing of the signatures, there was nothing in the Constitution preventing the motion from proceeding, given that the only thing that could prevent it was if it came out of time, but it was within time. The fact that they signed before some of the supporting evidence was completed is immaterial in light that there were 5 other valid, 6 other valid justifications with supporting evidence. And even so, in the House, both members who signed reaffirmed their commitment to the motion. So the signatures, the 10 signatures, the intention behind Parliament for the 10 signatures was to ensure that there is enough number of members in the House willing to propose a vote of no confidence. So that if there's only 2, we're not wasting our time. But if there's 10, there's a substantial portion of the House willing to go through with a vote of no confidence. And whether they get their 13 or 14 votes to have a successful vote of no confidence isn't the point. The point is that they're exercising their right under the Constitution in Clause 50B. And in the hierarchy of the laws, if there's nothing in Clause 50B preventing them from submitting a vote of no confidence, I didn't want to interpret the rules to contradict what the Constitution gives them, which is the right to make that decision.
Lord Fakafanua, after the decision to continue reading the motion of no confidence against our Prime Minister, Honourable Hokava Meliku, the Prime Minister asked to address the members of Parliament. In his address, he announced his resignation as Prime Minister of Tonga. This resignation was accepted by His Majesty, which confirms his resignation. At this point, we and the members of Parliament are just waiting for you, the Speaker, to tell us what is going to happen next regarding the election of the new Prime Minister for Tonga. But that is not how it played out. One of the members of Parliament quoted Rule 84F to point out that there should not be any other agenda apart from the motion of no confidence. He emphasized that the agenda of the vote of no confidence had started and the resignation of the Prime Minister happened afterwards. He continued by saying that we shouldn't be moving on to another agenda, which is the election of another Prime Minister, because the agenda of the motion of no confidence had already started. You responded by explaining the difference between Clause 50A and Clause 50B. Could you clarify the difference and why, after the resignation, we are using Clause 50A and not Clause 50B? Additionally, could you also explain how Rule 84F is not applicable at this point?
Well, the rules actually say debated. We had, first of all, we hadn't tabled it to read.
Yeah.
But what the rule actually says is we cannot debate another matter.
Yeah.
We didn't get to the point where we debated.
So that's what you said in Parliament. You guys didn't get to a point where you guys
we hadn't gone to the point where we've tabled it.
Yeah. There was no reading of any motion.
No.
Yeah.
When you table it, then you read
Yeah.
You read the motion, then you read the Prime Minister's reply,
Yeah.
and then you debate,
Yeah.
and then you vote.
Yeah.
What 84F says is when a motion for vote no confidence in the Prime Minister is debated in the Assembly,
Yeah. But it wasn't
there shall be
debated.
no other matter to be debated.
You guys didn't
First of
debate.
all, we weren't debating anything.
Yeah.
We hadn't even gotten to the point where we
Yeah.
read the motion.
No.
So what the member was trying to get us to do,
Was to debate.
well, not to debate anything else. We weren't debating anything
No.
else.
You guys weren't. You guys. He.
We
cited
hadn't
it.
even addressed the
No.
vote no confidence in terms of like reading it.
Or you have said yes, we can continue. Should we read it? We've got 10 more minutes, and that's when the Prime Minister said, "Can I address the?" You guys never read any motion yet. Yeah.
Yeah. So
That would be your
unfortunately,
answer.
for the member, he was wrong on 2 points.
Yeah.
One, the vote no confidence hadn't been tabled.
Yeah.
Secondly, we hadn't actually read it.
Yeah.
And thirdly, we hadn't gotten to the point where we debated it.
Yeah.
And what the rules say is once we debate, we can't
Yeah.
debate anything else.
Yeah.
And
And 50A is just the Prime Minister using that to resign.
when there's perceived to be, I think what the member sees as a conflict between Clause 50A and Clause 50B, I don't see a conflict. Because Clause 50B gives the members the right to submit a vote no confidence. And then our rules support that by giving some frameworks and timelines around how to do it. And what I saw was Clause 50A being completed by the end of lunchtime. Because Clause 50A required that the Prime Minister resigns to His Majesty. And so despite him resigning to us in the House and giving us his intention to resign, it's only effective when His Majesty acknowledges that resignation. And so that's why I deferred the House to 2:00, so that we can confirm from His Majesty that the Prime Minister has indeed resigned. And we did get confirmation. There was a letter from the Private Secretary from the Palace Office confirming his resignation. So as far as I was concerned, at that point, Clause 50A was complete. And there was no point in going forward with Clause 50B because there was no more Prime Minister.
Lord Fakafanua, when the former Prime Minister, Honourable Huakawa Meliku, addressed Parliament where he resigned, he mentioned that the Member of Parliament who submitted the motion of no confidence against him were convinced by the Noble's representative. He also mentions that he thought this country was given freedom, but it seems there's still a hint of us not being really free. So his decision to resign is to allow the members of Parliament to be free to vote. He also mentions that the noble representative can band together. Why can't we, the people's representative, do the same and put aside our differences for the betterment of Tonga? This statement from the former Prime Minister is mentioned as we knew that he didn't have the numbers, because normally this is the case before the vote of no confidence and as we get ready to elect a new Prime Minister. They go around convincing members to vote in their favor. This is very normal, yet this is the statement made by the former Prime Minister. The question that I have, do you think that the former Prime Minister is correct in us not being really free? And this ties into another question from the public saying that the event that just happened in Parliament, does it mean democracy in Tonga is working or not?
First of all, everyone is free according to our constitution. It's pretty common knowledge that George Depo I emancipated the slaves, and all the Tongans are free to make their own decisions. But your freedom cannot be. You cannot be so free that you impinge other people's freedoms. So there are guide rails around everyone's freedom. We're not free to just take our neighbor's property. We're not free to force people to do things they don't want to do. That's not freedom. Everyone has to have equal rights. And the fact that the Prime Minister feels like people are not free because apparently nobles and people's reps worked against him in a vote of no confidence, it doesn't really make any sense.
Yep.
Firstly, the former Prime Minister's government was only able to form a government with the support of the nobles. And if the nobles decide to withdraw their confidence, then that is the nobles exercising their freedom. And if the people's reps in the House decide to also withdraw their confidence from the former Prime Minister, that is their exercise of their freedom. So that freedom is also empowered by each member in the House who has a democratic mandate from their constituents. The nobles have their constituents, the people's reps have their constituents, and as elected members of the parliament, they all have the freedom to make their own decisions in the House. And whether you like it or not, you can't call that slavery or people not being free. That's the ultimate expression of freedom. The fact that we are free to elect our leader of government, and we are also free to show our lack of confidence in our leader of government. It's it doesn't bring any question to our democracy. In fact, it's the opposite. It ensures that people are confident that we have a working democracy, that we are still able to use the Constitution and abide by it according to the rules. So I would disagree with the Prime Minister on his point, the former Prime Minister, and reaffirm that it actually proves the opposite. The fact that we are going back to a ballot is very democratic.
Lord Fakafanua, Lord Tuvakanoa mentioned in one of his statements that the reason for the motion of no confidence is that they have no confidence in the former Prime Minister and his cabinet. And he suggests that maybe we should allow His Majesty to appoint an interim government while we work to nominate and elect a new Prime Minister. He's saying what is happening now is that the Prime Minister has resigned from his position, but he is still a minister, and his cabinet, led by the Deputy Prime Minister, is still our cabinet. To this you responded by quoting the law of the government, Section 18, to them. Can you please explain Section 18 in the law of the government and how it applies to the resignation of a Prime Minister?
I have here a copy of Section 18 of the law of the government. The Government Act, Section 18, subsection 2, reads, "The Deputy Prime Minister shall have and exercise all powers and shall perform all duties of the Prime Minister whenever the Prime Minister, by reason of absence, sickness," and this is the clause that we need to look at, "or other cause is unable to perform the duties of his office until the Prime Minister resumes such duties." So at this point, the Prime Minister had resigned, and so he's unable to perform the duties of his office because he's resigned. Given that the Constitution is silent on what happens to the Prime Minister, we then take authority from the Government Act, where the Deputy Prime Minister acts on the Prime Minister's behalf until we elect a new Prime Minister. So we didn't just start using this now. This was the same authority and the same process that happened when Clause 50A was in operation during Akilisi's time. He passed away on Clause 58, and so at that time, the Deputy Prime Minister was Misi Sika. He became acting Prime Minister under Section 18, Sub 2 of the Government Act. So it wasn't something that I can take credit for. It is something that is in precedent. We've done this before in Tonga.
This is the first time that this has happened since the democracy reform in 2010, that a Prime Minister has resigned. And yes, there will be confusion, not just within Parliament, but also among us, the public. Speaker, in my opinion, you did an amazing job settling down the members and explaining the process according to our Constitution. However, what this has proven to the members that there are holes in the Constitution that might be needed to be debated by future Parliament members to possibly amend the Constitution. What has emerged from the public, just from us talking about this situation publicly, is this. From the public, should the vote of no confidence still be a thing in the future? Especially now that we have an anti-corruption commissioner to address government corruption. Secondly, because members are convincing each other whom to vote for before electing a Prime Minister, should the power still lie with the members of Parliament, or is it time the public vote and elect a new Prime Minister? The question is, should these two suggestions from the public be something Parliament would consider a topic to debate when it comes to our Constitution?
Well, Lalo, the thing is, we've only had the vote of no confidence since 2010. It's only been 14 years. And so far, every government has seen a vote of no confidence.
Yeah.
I think the point that you raised about the anti-corruption commissioner is a good point. However, people are conflating or confusing corruption with no confidence.
Yeah, that's true.
Vote of no confidence is a political mechanism. It is a way for the House to confirm whether it still has confidence in the Prime Minister or not. It doesn't. Confidence isn't determined by corruption. It is purely on your relationship and on the perception, and it could have no basis on any. It doesn't have to be based on anything, really. If you don't like someone, you don't have to give them your confidence. And it is purely political.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with corruption. If there's corruption, then that should go to the right place. Anti-Corruption Commission, the police, the Auditor General. So I think it's important to note that it's important for the House to be able to maintain its democratic mandate throughout the 4 years. If we don't, then we'll be closer to a 4-yearly dictatorship.
Yeah.
Because then a Prime Minister who doesn't have the confidence of the House could potentially not be able to do anything. If a Prime Minister doesn't have the confidence of the House, that Prime Minister's government would struggle to pass laws. It would struggle to put government budgets through. You need the majority of the House to support your government for it to function. So that's the other flip side of the coin. If we remove the vote of no confidence and we end up with a very unpopular government, to the point where the majority of the House doesn't support the government won't be able to function. They wouldn't be able to pass a budget in order to pay the people, the civil servants. So that's why votes of no confidence exist in democracies. because without a government that has the support of the Parliament or the House, it'll be dysfunctional.
The second part of the question about having might be a chance that the public would have a say in the Prime Minister election.
Well, the public have a say when they vote their members into the House. And any one of those members, if they are able to bring together enough numbers, can form a government. There's no Commonwealth democracy that exists where people elect the Prime Minister directly. Israel tried it with Ariel Sharon. I think after 2 years, they repealed it because of the problem of the House not having the confidence of their leader in the government. It becomes very difficult for government to work. And if you end up with a popular Prime Minister outside but unpopular inside the House, it becomes very dysfunctional. So it has to, we have to rethink the whole system, because that's not really how Commonwealth or parliamentary systems work. Then you're looking at some sort of hybrid system that, where we're closer to the American system.
And they find it hard to work with the Congress, and if it's not a popular one inside the House.
They have their own problems.
Yeah.
And we don't need more problems. We need to fix our existing problems, and I don't think trying to come up with a system that doesn't exist anywhere in the world is going to help. I don't think reinventing the wheel in this case is something that we're capable of, but also we should be looking at best cases and taking what works in other jurisdictions and adapting ourselves to it. We've only been here for 14 years and we're only learning these things for the first time, so I think we just need to make some minor adjustments to our constitution.
Lord Fakafanua, we are here now. Next Tuesday on Christmas Eve, the candidate nomination for Prime Minister will take place in Parliament. So it seems it's Christmas in Parliament. The question I have for you now is to please explain the process from the day the Prime Minister resigned until Christmas Eve when the nominations will take place.
Under the Constitution, 50A, we have to look at the schedule for electing a Prime Minister. This is the same schedule in the Constitution for electing a Prime Minister after the general elections. And that schedule is pretty clear. Within 10 days, the Speaker is to issue an invitation to all the members of Parliament. These are only the elected members of Parliament, not the members that were appointed into Cabinet by the former Prime Minister. So all 26 members of Parliament were issued a notice on the next day, inviting them to submit nominations for the Prime Minister election. Nominations close on the 23rd, and these nominations have to be in accordance with the subscribed form, which needs the person who's being nominated or running for Prime Minister to sign, and 2 other members of Parliament. And if you've signed a nomination, you can't sign another nomination. So those nominations will be submitted to the office of the clerk, where there is a locked box, and the nominations will be sealed and put into the box, and on the 24th we will unlock the box and read out all the nominations, and if they are all valid, then the nominated people will become candidates, and we will have a round of debates where they place their case for why members should vote for them, and then we have a secret ballot. And right now, because I'm removed from the election, there will only be 25 members, so we need 13. a minimum of 13 who vote for one of the candidates for that person to be Prime Minister. Then they become the Prime Minister designate until His Majesty appoints them and they swear in at the next sitting of Parliament.
Just a follow-up, has this lock box got any nominations inside? Anyone submitted any nominations?
Right now, there are no nominations. We haven't received anything, so we expect to get it maybe by Friday or even Monday before we close the box.
How are you looking at next Tuesday, Christmas Eve? And you know, you're saying that they're going to be saying their speeches on why they think they should be the next Prime Minister, and there'll be debate. Would it all happen on that day, or would you wait that 3 days of...
It all has to happen.
It all has to happen on that day.
On that day. And if no one gets...
So we'll be getting a Prime Minister on Christmas Eve?
If no one gets 13 or more votes, then we will rest for 2 days and then come back and reballot.
Or hoping somebody will get the 13 votes so we can know before Christmas.
If there are 3, for instance, and none of them get 13, the bottom, the one who gets the lowest number of votes on
just
the day,
gets to...
they get cut off, and the other 2, they go on for a new secret ballot 2 days later.
My last question, Lord Fakafanua, is on the day, on the 9th of December, there was you heard the word constitution throughout the day, and from different parliamentarians, whether it's the nobles representative or the people's representative. So much so that I think this is the quote of the year, that you said, when you're reading the Constitution, it's not a buffet. You can't go from the entree and skip all the way to the dessert. Please explain this quote.
Well, some of the members wanted us to take parts from Clause 50B and use it in our procedure for Clause 50A. And you can't do that. You can't just pick and choose. You have to read it down, and also you have to understand the context, and if there's a relationship between the clauses, you have to take that into account. So it just came to me. It came naturally that, you know, what they were doing was picking and choosing, like they were picking and choosing in a buffet. So that's something that just came to me at the time. I never thought I would compare our constitution and reading the law to...
It's the first time for everything.
Buffet.
Lord Fakafanua, thank you for your time. I hope you get a little break during Christmas. I know you won't be getting one in Christmas Eve, but I hope during Christmas, and we'll be watching and excited to see what happens next and who will be our next Prime Minister of Tonga. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Lalo.
And that's our LALINOA for today, our little chat for today, and hope you guys got the information that people have been messaging us to find out, and hope this little interview will be an insight to everybody out there on what's happening, and we'll be, no doubt, get a new Prime Minister before the new year. Malo pito.